Ganking is one of the fundamentals of jungling in Smite, so I've gathered up some examples to teach you how to pull off more successful ganks. The information in this video can be applied to both Smite 1 and Smite 2 and is not dependent on the meta. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about where you should be ganking, then I'm going to go over a few methods and tips that will help you to make it happen. Before we go over how to gank, you need to know who to gank. Because no, solo laners, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to come force a fight on the tank Wukong when there's a perfectly good Zeus in the mid lane. Generally, you should look to gank lanes that have pressure or a winning matchup. As a basic example, Anhur is very good early game and has pretty good matchups across the board. So if I've got an Anhur on my team, it's probably a good idea to play on duo side and try to put him ahead. This applies to your matchups as well. Obviously, you would rather gank a guy that is easy for you to kill and not one that counters you. Typically, mid and duo are a higher priority than solo lane because mid pressure opens up the map, which gives you access to neutral camps, and duo side has the Gold Fury. Knowing where to gank is critical and is something that really only comes with time. As you play more and more Smite, you'll start to learn what matchups are favorable for your teammates and where you have the most kill potential. Now, let's look at a few methods that will help you to pick up some kills.
I just always tend to get camped by their jungler whenever I'm over here. Oh.
This is your fault for being a relevant name.
Oh god, I need to go back to banning the one trick Wheelix. That's tragic.
The first thing I want to talk about is when you should re-gank the same player you just killed. Re-ganks can be extremely effective for a few reasons. For one, if you just caught them off guard, you can assume they probably didn't have wards, which means you can easily walk back in, and they probably won't expect you to either stick around or come straight back to their lane. This strat can be especially effective versus solo laners. If you gank them once and they teleport back, they don't miss much farm. But if you kill them again after they've used their teleport, they're going to have a really bad time. Another reason reganks are so powerful is because a lot of the time it can break a player's mental. Getting sent back to the base twice in a row just isn't fun, and they might start tilting or flaming their jungler, which gives your team a big advantage. Smite is a mental game, and you can take advantage of that by ruining someone's match with a regank.
Holy shit, that is something. 3 times in the 3-minute mark, it's impressive.
Additionally, you can use your first gank to burn resources like relics or ultimates, and then come back later to pick up the kill. In this example, Huyi got away from my first gank, but we were able to burn his beats. Then I wrapped around and came straight back for essentially a free kill. Because my ult cooldown is much lower than his beads, I actually rotated on him a 3rd time and was able to take him down again. I literally ganked this guy 3 times in the span of 2 minutes. I'm sure he was having a ton of fun. Another way to set up easy ganks is to set up an ambush around buff camps. If you can get in position before the buff spawns and wait for someone to come clear it, they'll be far away from the safety of their tower. This requires good game sense and timing, but it's one of the easiest ways to pull off a gank. This is another way to put someone's mental in the mud. Getting your buff invaded is already frustrating enough, but if you kill them and get their buff, that takes it to the next level. Similarly, you can bait minion waves and wait for the enemy to push up to clear it. They'll probably cast a spell or two, which makes the fight even easier for you. Waiting behind corners can also help you get some free kills. If you have a good understanding of where the enemy is going to path, you can intercept their rotation and catch them off guard. In this clip, I forced the Poseidon's beads and poked him out, which forced him back to base. Briefly after that, there's a teamfight happening and I know he'll be on his way back, so I hid behind the action and waited for him to show up, which made for an easy pick. If your team is rotating on someone, one of the best things you can do is cover the option. I knew that this Ratatosker was going to try and ult away, so I ran far up the lane ahead of him to cut him off. Same thing with this Storm. He really had no choice but to try and escape with his ult, so all I had to do was wait around for him to pop out. Now I want to talk a little bit about how to gank in the first couple minutes of the match. If you're looking to gank duo in the early game, it's often easier to focus the support. Guardians are pretty squishy without items, and they might be more vulnerable than the Hunter. If you can take down the ADC, then that's probably better, but a kill is a kill. Either way, you're giving your team lane pressure and a lead. Honestly, putting the support behind is just extremely valuable in general because they won't be able to help their team as effectively. Sometimes you can get a cheesy first blood on mid by going for a cringe gank at level 2. They might not expect you to be there so early, and mages are very easy to kill early on. Putting your mid ahead gives you so much map control, which makes this a really strong strategy when it works out. You can try this on the solo laner as well. I usually won't go over here this early because they're a bit harder to kill than mid or duo, but it's the same principle. Most players aren't paying super close attention to the map, and you can get some really easy kills by ganking them at level 2. Another way you can find some easy ganks is by watching for greedy and aggressive players. If you pay close attention throughout the match, you'll often find that some players are overstaying frequently or playing way too far up in their lane. You want to target these people because a lot of the time they're going to give you essentially free kills. In this first example, my mid laner had the Merlin poked out and told me that he stopped his back, so I knew he was going to try and stay for the wave. Then I just wrapped around the jungle and was able to take him down. In the next clip, I could see that the Mulan was going to stay even though she was really low HP. A lot of the time these players are super unaware and just tunnel vision the wave, not realizing how free they look. You also want to be on the lookout for players that are constantly being over aggressive and forcing fights with their lane opponent. In this clip, I saw on the minimap that the Anhur had jumped in, so I immediately ran over there to help out my ADC. Apollo even had this corridor sentried, so I knew that Anhur didn't have wards, which made this gank extra easy. Next, I want to give you a few general tips to help make your ganks more successful. Tip number 1, directing teammates. Communication is key, especially for making ganks happen. If you watch any of the top junglers play ranked, they're always micromanaging their team to make sure things go smoothly. Try not to be annoying about it, but make sure you and your allies are on the same page when you're looking for a kill. Use pings and VGS to let your teammates know that you're coming or ask for help. In this example, I saw that Agni use his dash, so I told my Bacchus to attack. He tanked for me and we were able to pull off an easy tower dive. In the next clip, I asked my Kumba to come left and help us kill the Morrigan. I pinged the map to tell him to path with me through our sentry ward, and because he listened, this gank was very easy. I want to show you one more example where I told my Chalk exactly how to play the fight. I knew the Osiris would try to up down if Chalk ulted him, so once I showed up, he had no way to escape. Successful ganks require a good understanding of your damage potential. This comes mostly with time and experience, and the more you play, the better you'll become at knowing what fights you can win. This is especially useful when tower diving. When you're new, it's not a bad idea to just let people go if they escape to their tower, but as you get better, you'll learn when you can full commit and still live. Another thing that's really important is knowing how to play around abilities. The most basic example of this is waiting for them to use their escape. If your team can force them to dash before you come in, that's good, or like in this clip, I just waited for him to jump on the wave and ganked him right after. This applies to ults as well. In this example, we forced the Surtur's ult, and shortly after that, I was able to come back to kill him since he had no way to get out. You should also play around your teammates' abilities. Like in this clip, I waited for the Kumba to hit his cripple on the Hachi, then I blinked on him while he couldn't move. Playing around abilities becomes a lot simpler the more you play the game, but yeah, to recap this tip, bait out escape abilities, gank when their ult is down, and wait for your teammates' CC. You also want to adapt your strategy based on what the enemy is building. This is especially helpful when ganking solo laners because sometimes they don't build defense first item, which makes them pretty vulnerable. In this first example, the enemy Mulan didn't have any fizz prots, and I knew she would take a lot of damage from me. Same thing in this clip, the Bellona was building some garbage, so I ganked her a bunch of times because she just had no defense at all. One more example I want to show you. Before I ulted in on this Artemis, I checked to see if she was building crit because I knew there was no way I could kill her if she had it. Given it was still a lot closer than I would have liked, but I wouldn't have even taken this fight if she had a crit item, so make sure you're checking people's builds throughout the game and especially before you try to gank them. Tip 5. Timing. Ganking a lane can be time consuming, so it's important to be efficient. The longer a gank takes, the more time the enemy has to show up, so try and go for kills that are quick and easy. If you spend too much time trying to gank a lane, you may fall behind in gold and XP. Don't waste your time. Often it's more valuable to just clear your buff camps and look elsewhere. However, sometimes you can wait a very long time for the right opportunity. I'm playing this clip on 2x speed and just look how long I waited for the Raven to push up. I do this a lot in the early game because there's not really much else to do and they usually don't expect you to just sit around forever. Here's another example. This Ra was actually pretty aware and seemed like he expected it, but it's just unnatural for players to wait around this long, and so eventually he pushes up assuming I left, and what do you know, I'm still here, buddy. Wards are normally used to avoid ganks, but can also help you succeed in them. Vision is absolutely critical. If the enemy jungler or someone else is nearby, you need to decide if that's still a winning fight, otherwise your gank might be unsuccessful. One way you can avoid wards is by taking weird and unique pathing. In this clip, I knew the Rama had wards, So to get past them, I jumped over the Gold Fury wall, then jumped over this wall as well and waited for him to come back to lane. He didn't have a clue I was there because I bypassed his wards completely. Also, if you think an ally is about to get ganked, you can hover near their lane so you're in position to help out if they run into trouble. In this example, my Cupid just killed the enemy ADC and is staying at 1 HP to catch the wave. I knew that the Awilix would come try to clean him up, so I hid nearby and was able to stop the gank. And that's it. If you want to learn more about how to jungle in Smite, go check out this video where I cover 10 tips that will help you improve. Thanks for watching.